Welcome, everyone, to CPN CMMC Roundtable. So every week, we try to bring people from the ecosystem, our service providers, anyone who wants to come and deliver value to the CPN community. So this week, I'm thrilled to have Travis go back he's the global head of CMMC go-to-market at Amazon Web Services. He's going to be letting us know how to accelerate CMMC with AWS. Welcome, Travis.
Derek, really appreciate you having me on today. Looking forward to having this discussion and letting everyone know how we can support the DIB journey.
Awesome. Let's do it.
Okay, great. So these are the agenda items that I thought we'd just go through very quickly, just high level traditional challenges with on-premise, different compliance strategies that we're seeing across the board. We'll dive more into AWS's portfolio and different resources that we have available. If really what I'm looking for you to get out of this is, number one, understand that AWS is a player in the space. Number two, that we have documentation available to help support customers on their journey. And number three, just know that I'm here to have conversations with anyone. I'll be supplying my contact information at the end. Feel free to give me a call or an email, and we can talk through things in a little bit more detail. Many organizations face challenges with managing and maintaining the security of their on-premise environment. Why is that? It's because of lack of visibility and a low degree of automation. In an on-premise environment, it can really be difficult to understand what resources and data are out there at any given time, where it's moving, and who has access to it. So most organizations don't have that level of visibility within their on-premise environment that they need. And without that visibility, it's challenging for organizations to secure their infrastructure and their data to meet the security and compliance requirements that they need. The other typical challenge that we're seeing is trying to get rid of manual processes to remediate issues. So manual processes tend to lead to inconsistent execution, longer wait times, and in most cases, disrupting your customer's experience. So this combination of lack of visibility and low degree of automation makes it difficult for organizations' ability to move quickly and effectively to secure their on-premise infrastructure. So all of that today is easier when using the cloud. You're able to stay agile and improve security. But one of the first things that you're going to have to do as you either migrate to the cloud or build out your on-premise environment is really understand where your FCI and CUI is. So as organizations are doing that, that's going to be a critical factor, understanding what their scope and their process and their boundary will be. We understand that one size isn't going to fit all processes. Organizations have lots of choices that can impact overall cost and overall IT risk. So once you do understand where that FCI is and CUI and maybe additional compliance requirements that you may have, you can determine what's appropriate for your organization. A lot of times customers have sensitive data flowing through or sitting on more portions of their IT infrastructure than they really knew or would prefer. Oftentimes CUI or that data is on an employee's laptop, sitting in an email, or sitting in a random folder across your network. So without those real strong data handling policies, users can often create copies of that data and wind up in different locations. But once you do have that, you can go off of one of these different strategies that we have available. The customers, partners, and future customers and partners that I've spoken with within the ecosystem are really utilizing one of these strategies moving forward to build out their environment. One is building a CMMC enclave or environment around their entire organization. Other organizations like AWS are separating out that boundary from the other parts of their business system. So lots of commercial companies also doing business with the DoD, so they want to separate that out. We've even seen other larger organizations looking to meet a different level across their different business units, not just one level across all of them. And then the number one risk when speaking with different CISOs around the defense industrial base, they've said their number one risk is their subcontractors. So they're looking at ways that they can build out an environment for their subcontractors. And then lastly, a lot of organizations are looking to build out desktop as a service or virtual desktop infrastructure across their user base, taking that end user or that computer out of scope for CMMC to make it a lot easier for them to meet those requirements. So those are just some of the ways that we've seen, but obviously understanding where your is and FCI, as well as what are your additional compliance requirements that you have.
Hey, Travis, quick question.
Yep.
I'll go back. So on that CMMC compliant environments or subcontractors, is that meaning subcontractors people, or is that subcontractor companies to the, if you're a prime, or you may even be a sub, and then these are subs underneath of you?
Yeah, subcontractor companies, so that are subbing on a mission program.
Okay. Yeah, and it seems like in the industry, it is moving that way for some small manufacturing companies that only do a little bit for some of these larger companies. It makes it easier because then they just use the compliant environment for their primes.
Exactly. Yeah, I know at previous companies that I've worked for, when I was working with some of the large prime contractors, they'd ultimately hand me a virtual desktop for their own laptop and enabled me to be a part of their ecosystem. That definitely made it a lot easier for myself to know, which computer to log into when I needed to be within their environment, and then also to meet those compliance requirements.
What's the difference between the bottom two?
The bottom two is more just for subcontractors within a prime contractor's environment. The other one is just virtual desktop across an organization.
Okay, sounds good.
So this is AWS's strategy, and it's going to be AWS and our partners provide solutions to help customers accelerate their CMMC compliance while reducing that level of effort and risk. And we're doing that in a lot of different ways. The first place it's going to start is with our core region infrastructure, which is custom built for the cloud and designed to meet some of the most stringent security requirements in the world. Our infrastructure is monitored 24/7 to help ensure confidentiality, integrity, and the availability of that customer data. And all of that data that's flowing across the AWS network that interconnects with our data centers and regions is automatically encrypted at the physical layer before it leaves our facilities. So customers can build on some of the most secure infrastructure, always knowing that they have control of their data, the availability to encrypt it, move it, and manage retention at any time. So with our infrastructure, customers are starting to inherit those physical environmental controls, as well as media protection, maintenance, contingency planning, depending on what we're looking at from a CMMC, or if you're looking to meet FedRAMP moderate or equivalency. Just above that, we have our cloud-based services. These are going to be services which are authorized at FedRAMP moderate or FedRAMP high, and all 17 of those services that store customer data offer the availability to encrypt it. Then we have different solutions that are available for our customer. These are going to be solutions which will help you automate different tool sets to build out a current environment or a specific use case. And those are going to be deeply integrated with artifacts, which is documentation that AWS has. Above that, we have professional services and managed services. When our professional services team works with customers to meet CUI requirements or NIST 800-171 requirements, they're actually working in something we call the controlled working environment. That's gone through an independent assessment with Coalfire, establishing that we've met the NIST 800-171 requirements. And here in the very near future, we are doing another assessment from a CMMC level 2 perspective. After we meet those and get certified at level 2, we're going to go ahead and go for level 3 requirements, because we know our customers are going to need our help to support some of these mission critical events that they're working on. To the right of that, we have our partner network. And our partner network's going to be 3 different types of partners. It's going to be our consulting partners, our technology partners, and our assessment partners. And I'm going to dive into some of this in a little bit more detail, starting with the regions, the cloud services, solutions, and partners. The others are a little bit more self-explanatory, so I won't dive into those too deep. But we do have training for organizations, over 600 free digital training courses that are available. And last year, we did something called the Cloud Audit Academy for federal and DoD workloads, which taught you how to use AWS services to meet federal and DoD compliance requirements, such as NIST 800-171, NIST 853, and CMMC. So this was a course that was available for free for customers to go ahead and be a part of. It was a 2-day course. Mostly it's auditors, assessors, regulators, compliance professionals that were looking at doing this. We also did it for a number of organizations that had anywhere from 25 to 50 people that wanted to show up. We do plan on extending that out again. There isn't a date right now. But if you were to go to the Cloud Audit Academy for Federal and DoD workloads, you should be able to sign up. And then when we start that again, you'd be able to be on our list and let you know when it's going to happen. And then lastly is enablement programs. There's over 50 different enablement programs that customers utilize with their account teams to help them migrate, modernize on AWS. So there's different programs in there that can also bring in our Amazon partner network to help support. So this is the portfolio that we'll go through in a little bit more detail. But first things first is the shared responsibility model. So AWS is responsible for security in the cloud security of the cloud, and customers are responsible for security in the cloud. And it's depending on the services that you actually utilize. So there's infrastructure services, there's container services, there's even abstracted services. And the line is really going to vary. So the more customization that you need to do, it's more going to be that bottom half where AWS is taking care of the regions, the availability zones, and then the services that are on top of that, like compute, storage, database. And then as you move up the stack, we're going to take over some things like operating and patching, networking, and a couple of additional things. But those are items that you can really read about within AWS's user guides to help you understand what do you need to do from a security perspective when utilizing these different services. So these are the two main regions on the left that customers are utilizing to help support them on their CMMC journey. The first one is the AWS US Commercial East-West region. Ultimately, that region will help you meet FedRAMP Moderate, DoD SRG impact levels 2. But we have a lot of customers going to GovCloud. So GovCloud is a fully isolated partition of the cloud with internet access capable of connecting to customer networks, but with no direct access to the other partitions, so the other clouds. There is requirements to gaining access to GovCloud, but the main reason I want to say why customers decide to go to GovCloud is because, number one, they have ITAR restrictions. So AWS GovCloud is on US soil, operated by US citizens, and that helps them meet that ITAR restriction. Also, if they're operating on behalf of the government or the DoD, they're going to also require the DoD Security Requirements Guide for cloud computing at aisles 4 and 5 for handling CUI. So those are the main two reasons, but if you also have FedRAMP High restrictions as well, that could be another one. To the right, we do have AWS secret region and top secret region for customers that want to build on top of what they're currently doing around CUI, classified workloads and top secret workloads.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
Sorry. I thought of AWS Cloud, since it's FedRAMP, do you have to be invited by the JAB or a specific agency, or as a company can just spin up an AWS GovCloud?
Yeah, so you can spin up an AWS GovCloud, but we do have requirements to gaining access. So these are going to be the 3 requirements. So the account holder must be a US person or a green card holder, so that root account holder. Organization must be incorporated to do business with the United States and based on US soil. And then we're going to go ahead and do an additional background check with the State Department to ensure that you can handle export control data. So those are going to be the 3 requirements. Other than that.
So I'm sorry. Number 2, what does that mean? I got an LLC. I do work. So am I good to go, or is that some additional paperwork to be incorporated to do business with the government? Or is that just standard being incorporated?
Yeah, being incorporated within the United States, not overseas. Mark, you had a question too?
Yeah, jump back to that previous slide, would you? What percentage of your customers would you say CMMC customers are in the commercial cloud versus the Gov cloud? And then pricing. Help us understand percentage. Let's just say commercial cloud is $100. Is Gov cloud twice as much? Is it $200? So what's the pricing difference in those two?
Sure. So I'll answer the first one. I would say 70 to 80%, maybe even higher than that, are building in the GovCloud. I would say it's typically universities or FFRDCs that are building in the commercial region because they understand that they're not going to have ITAR restrictions. Other than that, we do have companies that are building in both, that are putting CUI in both. It just depends on, does that CUI have ITAR restrictions? So we've noticed over 61% of those contracts that are going to be coming out will also have ITAR restrictions added onto them. So they're going to be moving to the GovCloud. As far as pricing.
Sorry, before you jump to pricing, can they communicate with each other? And then if somebody decides to go from commercial up to Gov, is it hard?
No, they're not communicating with one another except for when you first build out your environment. You have to start with a commercial account and then request access for a GovCloud account, and then billing can actually be rolled up together. But it's not difficult other than having those additional requirements fulfilled that I talked about on the next page. And then as far as pricing goes, it's anywhere from 15 to 20% more is what we typically hear, but it really depends around the cost model. Obviously, cloud is only pay for what you use, and there is different cost models within that. I would suggest for organizations that are looking at cost optimization, number one, looking at the services that are available, but also utilize our pricing calculators. Our pricing calculators will allow you to understand what the different capabilities of costs are from a GovCloud perspective to a commercial east-west perspective.
But when we looked at it, we saw some services that were in commercial that wasn't in GovCloud. Is that still the same?
Correct.
Okay. So just everybody, when we looked at it, there was some security services that were in commercial that went in GovCloud. So we were debating if it was less secure, but just at a high level.
No, it's not less secure. It does have the same level of security other than, having the U.S. citizens on U.S. soil operating it. Yeah. But you're completely correct. It's not apples to apples.
We mean less secure, not on AWS part, but how we could configure it and what tools we could use, especially what tools we were comfortable with as an org. AWS is great.
Yeah. If that does happen and if there is services that are needed in the GovCloud, then I work with the team that actually helps drive those efforts to getting authorized at FedRAMP High for those services. So we just need to work together to understand that, and then I can drive the service teams to help support your specific business needs.
Thank you.
And I'm guessing you have a roadmap, kind of like, in Microsoft, their govs, they don't have the same as their commercials. I'm guessing you have somewhat of you do it in commercial and then there's a roadmap to get most of it into the GovCloud, right?
Correct. And we typically go through that roadmap discussion with customers or customers under NDA and MSA with us to help understand that roadmap. And then we can help identify if there's gaps within what their needs are and then try to push with the service teams to elevate those at a quicker pace. So I just wanted to showcase the control IDs here, or the domains. Basically, when you're going to GovCloud, you're going to inherit 20 controls from a CMMC NIST 800-171 perspective. A lot of that's going to be around maintenance, media protection, physical protection, and I think there's one there for access control. So getting you, I think, about 18% of the way by just going to the region. If we're looking at it from a FedRAMP moderate perspective, we're going to cover fully, I think it's 98 controls of the 325 for FedRAMP moderate, and that's going to be covered under access control, maintenance, media protection, physical protection, contingency planning, and system and communication protection. So some good ways to start leveraging and making things easier for you. But we do have lots of services that are available everywhere from compute, storage, database, analytics, machine learning. We do have different guides that customers can go to identify what services are within which region. So finding that out up front, like John was talking about, they found out that some services weren't in GovCloud. We were able to see exactly what services are within commercial east-west, commercial east versus commercial west, Gov versus GovCloud East, as well as the pricing. And then also what compliance regime do these services meet? So is it FedRAMP? Are they meeting the FedRAMP moderate? Are they meeting the FedRAMP high? Are they meeting the DoD SRG impact level 2, 4, 5, or 6? And that makes it a lot easier. Where there is some additional compliance regimes that are in there that can help customers, but from a DoD DIB perspective, that's what we're seeing mostly. A lot of customers don't realize that we do have security, identity, and compliance solutions that are available. And those are going to align with the NIST cybersecurity framework for identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And then we have compliance documentation that's available. One of them is going to be AWS RBAC, which we'll dive into a little bit more detail, as well as AWS Audit Manager. Now we'll jump to some of those solutions that we have. The first solution that we have is AWS Conformance Packs. So organizations that are already built on top of AWS, they want to be sure they verify compliance with a collection of AWS configuration rules. So there's these conformance packs that are available. They're based off of operational best practices. It'll basically give you the configuration code to utilize within your environment, and it will showcase if you're meeting compliance with that common baseline. There's packs available for CMMC 2.0 levels 1 and 2, 171, 172 if you're looking to go for level 3. I think of the 24 requirements for level 3, there's about 14 of them that are available within the 172 pack. We will be rebranding that at some point soon to just say level 3 and also have the proper control IDs, adding in like the ACL3, for instance. And then if you're looking to meet FedRAMP moderate, there is packs that are available. But this is basically for customers that are already built on AWS or want to build on it their own way with not a lot of help of these other tool sets that we have. Second solution that we have is AWS Audit Manager. An audit manager will continuously audit your AWS usage. So you'd simply choose from the framework. The framework that we have in there right now is NIST 800-171. We're going to be updating that to obviously show the control IDs at a CMMC level 2 perspective, but this is a good place to start. So you're able to create your own custom framework there. You can specify what services are going to be within that scope and boundary, and it can be different types of services that you're utilizing outside of the cloud. And then an assessment and continue other evidence, and then ultimately conduct controlled reviews or delegate different resource owners to validate that information is correct. And then if you do see areas that are incorrect, you can go ahead and filter through groups of your data and deep dive into those areas of non-compliance. And then after that, you're able to generate a report. This report will have links to objective evidence, so then you can utilize that within your CMMC assessment when you're going through with a C3PA out. So currently, this solution is available within our commercial East-West region. It's on the roadmap for GovCloud and should be within there here in the next few months, based on what I've been told.
How much is that going to help during a CMMC level 2 audit?
From an objective evidence perspective, it will help you link to that. I've had one person on my team review that who has gone through the CMMC assessor's certification, and they think it could be very beneficial for organizations to utilize that within the documentation that they're handling, or being able to take that information and put links into it so they can go ahead and showcase that evidence.
Okay. I used it for IRS audit, which is similar to CMC by 3PLs. It helped out immensely. Like I said, it showed all the findings, and I don't want to call out the company. They were a little light on AWS skills, which I thought was weird. So we were showing this over their stuff. So from an IRS standpoint, and 2 is we actually took it a different step. We use System Manager to automatically remediate stuff. Like if somebody took a KMS key or stop encrypted, we could force it to go back on. So we were showing the auditors there's no way they could take it off. So my fault, Travis. Back to you, man.
Thank you, John. That's great. Real world experience. So I appreciate that. So the next solution that we have available is these are going to be automated reference deployments that are built by AWS solution architects and our partners. And you're able to utilize these best practices to basically automate hundreds of manual hours into just a few steps. It's going to include something called a cloud formation template that automates the deployment and guides you through these different architecture build steps that you need to go through. So There's a lot of services that also include this, not just the examples that I have below. The examples that I have below are more from a security compliance perspective to help customers on their CMMC journey, but there are ones available for customers to utilize for different services. But as an example, we have CMMC Microsoft Active Directory, we have multi-factor authentication, which is built out by Duo. We have security automations for WAF, automated security response. And I would say the number one quick start that customers are utilizing is the landing zone accelerator. And we'll actually talk about that in a lot more detail. First,
Travis, real quick, that back on that slide, the only thing, be careful with that WAF, because that's like $3,000 a month. So people are actually cutting on that and getting a big bill. That's my only issue with that last slide. WAF is not cheap for smaller companies. They might want to highlight that, Travis, that people were getting surprised with the cutting on a WAF, and that's like $3,000 a month for a small company. Chime in if that's been a couple of years ago. I don't know if the price came down. That caught a few of my smaller clients by surprise at $3,000 bill, Travis.
I know we have done price cuts, but this is where that pricing calculator would probably come into play. But again, John, thank you. That's great feedback for the audience to really understand, and for myself too, because I haven't used WAF on my own personally.
So like Travis said, go through and make sure you're price conscious about all that. The only real big thing, everything else I thought was reasonable, but that WAF is like a one-time, it used to be a one-time bill. Once you cut it on, it's like $3,000 a month. So that was the only one that really caught us off guard. Everything else was kind of like, you get billed by an hour or a minute or whatever, but that WAF is kind of like a big upfront bill.
Yeah, great to know, John. Thank you. So we have something called AWS Control Tower, and this will actually help you set up and operate a multi-account environment. So a lot of, I want to say, universities that are doing multiple projects with the DoD or different grants, they're going to have a multi-account across commercial and GovCloud, as well as have different organizational units that are attached with those that are trying to meet different compliance regimes. So you're able to set up different multi-accounts and actually have your researchers access those different accounts. So if they just needed to access a CMMC account, or if they need to access a HIPAA organizational unit, I should say, then you can manage that across multi-accounts. So this will actually help you quickly deploy applications, provision those compliant accounts, and then deploy controls without compromising security. A lot of organizations are utilizing this both within their commercial East, West, and GovCloud region. And then they're bringing in something like the landing zone accelerator. Think about the landing zone accelerator. Go ahead, Mark.
So if you go back, so I'm trying to put all these pieces together. So if somebody wants to set up a environment, what was the previous slide that had a lot of the quick starts? So does the quick starts feed into the next one?
Yeah, so if I had it in order properly, I would say start with the control tower, utilize the landing zone accelerator, then add in the quick start on top of that for the additional elements that you need. I think that would be the best way. The reason why I don't have it that way is because I want to show some artifacts to the landing zone accelerator after this. So it just helps for me not going back and forth. But
so if you're a sysadmin, you can create these kind of standard templates that are compliant. And then you can have your team take these and deploy these into multiple instances, and then they just have to tweak things accordingly to their specific instance, right?
Yeah, their specific instance or who they wanted to access that specific instance, as well as what are the different services that they should be utilizing or working with. So it can be really intuitive that way. So think about the landing zone accelerator. This is going to be a secure, scalable, multi-account environment. Think about building out a house. You need the foundation, you need the framing, you need the plumbing, you need the roof, the siding. But once you go inside that house, everyone's going to want something different, from a different kitchen to different types of rooms to support different needs. And this will actually build that foundation for you. You're going to want to make it your own and ensure that you're bringing in your additional security tools like a SIM or your network firewalls or your vulnerability scanner. This is just going to get you part of the way there and set up that foundation for a secure organizational unit that you can utilize within that umbrella of the control tower. So something you can set up within days, not months or years. It's architected to align with AWS best practices. I'm going to go through the documentation for this in just a minute. And then it is available with AWS support in commercial East-West and in GovCloud. Let me just go back to this. Seeing this architecture and the people that are on and the people that are going to be viewing this webinar here, this could be challenging, but if you have a partner that helps you along the way, it can make it be very easy for you to meet these requirements from a CMMC perspective. I shouldn't say very easy. It can make it easier for you and ultimately reduce some of that burden. We have AWS artifacts available. These are going to be no cost. It's a self-service portal for customers to go to. Ultimately, all you'd need is an AWS account. This would not cost anything to view this documentation. You'd simply go to AWS artifact and then do view compliance reports. And all three of these would actually come into play. But we have the landing zone accelerator, customer responsibility matrix. That's going to include NIST 800-171, CMMC, customer compliance guide, service by service guidance, and then FedRAMP package. So let's dive into these in a little bit more detail. The first one here is the landing zone accelerator customer responsibility matrix. It's really called the NIST 800-171 CMMC customer pack, but it's going to provide guidance for customers to understand what they can inherit from a CMMC NIST 800-171 perspective. And ultimately, this is what it looks like. So you can see the control domains on the left. It'll go through all 110. It's got the practice IDs from a CMMC level 2 perspective, as well as a NIST 800-171 Rev 2 perspectives. Mapping those, and then across NIST 853. Plan on actually bringing this into the customer compliance guides, as well as adding the FAR 52.204.21, CMMC level 1, updating the NIST 853 to revision 5, and adding in ISO 27001. So everyone can have a full picture of all the different compliance regimes that go across this. Then it showcases the different practice statements, how it's fulfilled. Was it fulfilled by AWS GovCloud or commercial and the landing zone accelerator? Is it a customer responsibility, or was it one of those 21 controls from AWS GovCloud? I should say 20 controls. So partial inheritance, no inheritance, full inheritance, and then you can see the different services that get spun up for each one of those. This is really where our customers are getting the most out of this document. It's within the configuration options, implementation details, and operational responsibility on an AWS side. But then to the right of that is the customer implementation expectations and operational responsibility. So walking through each one of these steps, implementing your infrastructure based off of what it says here, and then taking that back into your system security plan on how you're doing these specific steps within these controls.
With your go ahead, buddy. Go ahead. My bad. Would your conformance pack validate that you set it up right using these? Correct.
So the landing zone accelerator will actually come with configuration files. So you wouldn't need to do that. You could just use the configuration files that are already pre-existing there.
Yeah, but once I set it up, will I validate it with my conformance pack to make sure I did it correctly for my continuous monitoring?
Yeah, I think you could do that. I would suggest just using those configuration files to monitor it and utilize something like config to review that, because some of the configuration files are a little bit different than the conformance packs. On the conformance packs, there's I think 7 that aren't available in AWS GovCloud, where this configuration file will give you everything.
Okay.
To you.
Hey, with all the 320, do you have a CRM map to that, or is it just to this?
Just to this. If I could, I would create something like that, because I think it would be very advantageous for our customers to utilize that.
Is it on the roadmap? Hint, hint. Is it on the roadmap? Hint, hint.
Not right now.
Okay. Fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I'll be transparent. It's honestly not something that I've thought about. I am a team of 1 operating right now. So if I can get some different team members to help leverage and build that, then I think that would be very important. So this is everyone's favorite eye chart. So this is based off the landing zone accelerator. What you could really see here is when you deploy the landing zone accelerator, you're going to be inheriting 21 controls. 79 of those are going to be shared responsibilities. So the services that get spun up, as well as the operational responsibility on AWS's perspective, will help drive that shared responsibility. And then there's 10 customer responsibilities within that. So just to break it down a little bit more. But this wasn't enough for customers. They wanted to even understand more. So we have AWS customer compliance guides, and these are going to be service by service guidance, which is going to map to, it's going to have over 100 different services and features. It's going to map to different security topics. And then it's going to also provide guidance. So there's 16 different compliance frameworks that you could actually choose from. CMMC 2.0 is one of those, NIST 800-171, and so on and so forth. You could choose to help support you. This is what that document would look like, another Excel spreadsheet available within an AWS artifact for customers to download. You simply select the services on the left-hand side there, whichever service you're utilizing. Then go through the different security topics like access control, data storage, encryption at rest, encryption in transit, encryption in use, endpoint encryption, you name it. And we have the related controls. As you can see, there's a couple there that say ACL1. That's going to be changing and updated to the new control IDs as they are now. So that will look for L1 more as the FAR 52.204.21 looks, and it'll be updated to the L2s. And then we have the AWS customer compliance guidance. Some of this guidance will actually take you back to the user guide page of the service, and it will outline even more information around security in the cloud and security of the cloud, and then the different services and features that get spun up. But if I wanted to go to any one of the other compliance frameworks, I'd simply click on the CMMC up here on the right-hand corner, and there'd be a drop-down of all the other frameworks for customers to utilize. And then the last document that we have is the FedRAMP customer package. This is going to provide a control implementation summary, basically summarizing FedRAMP and DoD control ownership and the responsibility of AWS, the customer, and the shared responsibility from a FedRAMP perspective. There's going to be a customer responsibility matrix, which provides a control-based breakdown of customer responsibilities within AWS, as well as annual assessment letters from the FedRAMP board, basically summarizing the authorization approvals for commercial East-West and GovCloud following a third-party assessment. And this is what one of those customer responsibility matrix is going to look like within there. Obviously, the control IDs on the left, then you can see to the right if it's referenced in the FedRAMP moderate, because ultimately this is for GovCloud, the one that I'm showing here, but there would be more of an identical one that's available for the commercial East-West region. And then can it be inherited from AWS? Yes, no, partial inheritance and customer responsibility right next to that. So for customers that are looking to meet the FedRAMP moderate authorization, also identify it this way. And then within that landing zone accelerator customer responsibility matrix, I actually have a tab in there that will showcase the NIST 800-171 and CMMC control IDs next to this within the FedRAMP package. So if you were looking to look at it from a different lens, the opposite way, you could do that here too.
Is there a 53 tab in there or just a 171 tab?
The one that I have is just 171 and CMMC mapping to the 53 control IDs or the FedRAMP control IDs. Network perspective, again, we have 3 forms of partners that we work with. Number 1, consulting partners. These are going to be partners that help design, architect, build, manage, and migrate onto AWS. We have our technology partners. These are going to be software solutions that are hosted on or integrated with AWS. And then we have our CMMC assessment partners. A lot of the CMMC assessment were actually FedRAMP assessors prior to becoming AWS CMMC assessment partners. So they really understand the cloud when auditing in the cloud and how to help our customers. So we have a selection of them. But when customers are looking for help, they engage us multiple different ways. We do discovery sessions with them and work backwards to really understand what their requirements are. They utilize our training and skill competencies that we have. So those 600 free digital training courses. Some of them like to develop a pilot or a proof of concept to really understand if this is something that's going to meet their specific requirement. And then the last one is some of them are partners and want to do go-to-market efforts with me around CMMC and how we can support a go-to-market effort together. But really, I would say These are the main reasons why organizations are leveraging AWS. Number one is they're going to be inheriting the physical, logical controls from AWS and being a cloud service provider, as well as those FedRAMP authorizations. Number two, business agility. Organizations are able to create enclaves pretty quickly, which can obviously augment out a on-premise system. Number three, speed to scale. Customers can provision thousands of servers into just a few minutes. From a cost savings perspective, we did talk about that and be able to see with the pricing calculator. It's basically pay for what you use. And then the pace of innovation. So we continuously innovate and add in different services to meet different requirements, and where we're delivering over 3,400 different services now at AWS. So I know that was a lot. Probably for some of you, it was clear as mud, but would love to have additional conversations with you, understand how we could support you. We can continue with questions, but here's my contact information. Feel free to contact me either by cell phone, by my email at travigol at amazon.com, or CMMC on AWS at amazon.com. Both of those will go to me.
Well, Travis, thank you for doing that. Anybody have any questions? Either you want to post in the chat or ask out loud.
People start to craft their questions. Just wanted to thank Mark for contacting Travis and getting this coordinated. Insightful information. A lot of people may not be aware of all of the capabilities AWS has. So thanks, Travis. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Mark, as always. Great seeing you last week as well. John, very nice to meet you too. And thanks for your input and guidance from an AWS perspective.
Oh, no problem. I had a few clients that used it that were fairly big. And like you said, you have a lot of stuff. Sometimes it's overwhelming.
And that's typically why I get crickets at the end, because a lot of it is overwhelming. A lot of customers or future customers don't even realize the capabilities that we have.
Yeah,
so it's refreshing hearing it from you too.
Because we usually don't do the AWS tower. We usually do AWS org, then org to the landing zone. Because tower has so much people. I think the org is one step below tower, right? So
yeah,
I usually see org. Yeah, because you can get your standard accounts without the rest of that. So that's kind of where I'm trying to get better at is AWS org with the standard accounts. And like you said, the landing zone is really what everybody needs with all the checks and stuff, then flows into the rest. We get in trouble a lot of times is you set up the lovely org, and sometimes our app is not as crisp as we need. So now we got to cut stuff off and try to do mitigating control. So that's kind of where I think we struggle a little bit on that. What do you see out there? It's cool until you start putting apps out there and they can't work because the security is actually too good and too tight. So
yeah, I would say that. And then, yeah, just having the right people to help operate an AWS environment is the biggest challenge I see. And that's really where we have to bring in different partners to support that.
Yeah, too. I think you think people should right size their apps before they come, or do lift and shift and figure it out when they get there? Or does it depend on the app, I guess?
Definitely right size your apps and do, I would say one of those programs that account managers will go through is application migration, understand what those apps size, make sure that it's only bringing over the data that you need. That's probably, I would say, one of the main things that you would have to do.
The problem with that, Mark, is, and I'm going to cut you out, I'm going to play it on YouTube. CTOs help. They will fight you. They don't want to change their technology right off the bat, because then they lose control over it. I almost got in a fist fight over that. So what's your thoughts on that? Because now you re-architecting their app that they love.
Yeah, I mean, it's just going based off of the AWS best practices when customers are bringing over those applications. So we're trying to guide them in the right direction. But ultimately, it's going to be up to the customer on how they want to architect those applications. It's just us to give them the options and make them understand how it can be done.
Travis, I agree with you, but you're not helping me, man. I just want you to let you're not helping me. I agree with you. It's a business decision. You're 100% right. It's a business decision. And I tell them it's risk. If you want to bring over the brittle stuff, there's risk to it. So thank you.
Mark, you want to read that question from Ed White?
Yeah.
What a good question.
Yeah. So the differentiation between AWS, GCP, GCC High. And then what are some of AWS's competitive advantages?
What are the differentiators between AWS? I would say where does AWS stand out is building out infrastructures and doing coding I think those are some main ones that really stand out. I'd say some of the difference is there's a lot of people that are focused on the productivity tools that are available with GCP and GCP. We do have something called AWS Wicker that help out with some of that productivity and secure communications, but they have some really great resources that are out there too. But we can also connect with those different providers and ultimately whatever you want to do from a hybrid perspective.
Yeah, and that was one of the key points I think you made in that KuiCon was you don't do email. So if somebody has Gmail or they have Microsoft email, that they can connect with AWS.
Yeah, we can integrate together. But we make that really easy because we know that we're not going to ever be in that space.
Any other questions?
Travis, I do have a quick question. I'm not sure if I had missed it. So y'all don't do email. What about like the antivirus? Is that something y'all do internally, or is this basically a solution that will partner?
Hey, you can partner in an AWS partner to do that.
We see most people use, if they're using Defender on Prem, they want to use Defender in the cloud, and you can support all that and different type stuff. When I see it, whatever they're using on Prem, because they don't want to run two different AVs. So like AWS partners with most of those guys. So if we run an Intune, Defender, whatever they run on Prem, they really run on the cloud, so they can kind of get discounts on that too.
So Marcus, as far as just CPN collaborating with AWS, Travis had any discussions around maybe training or materials?
Yeah, we did. Travis just mentioned that at the very end. If you go back one slide, Travis, you talked about some of the training. Yeah, right there, the training, the develop, partnership. So we're going to be working more closely with Travis and trying to help the CPN community to utilize some of these things, understand, go a little bit more in depth, maybe have some specific types of training based on kind of your focus, each person's, whether it's really, really deep technical, a sysadmin, and networking, or higher level, those kind of things. We're gonna try and figure out how we can benefit the whole CPN community and work with Travis and doing some of that stuff.
Yeah, I could see the first one being a deeper dive of the landing zone accelerator, having the different team members just understand a little bit more in depth. I covered a high level, but it might be better to dive into it.
Awesome.
Okay. Anything else?
Once, going twice. All right. Great. We will, once I get around to creating or just kind of editing the recording, this will be on the CPN's YouTube channel. Recording.
Okay.
Awesome.
All
Thank
right.
you very much. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate the opportunity.